Hello everyone, welcome back again to the channel. After playing all the way through DioField Chronicle, playing every single mission, and moving on to New Game Plus, I am ready to do a detailed Ultimate Skills Breakdown series on all the available skills in the game. We will start today with the Soldier class skills, and the videos on the other classes will follow within the next few days, if all goes according to plan. The Soldier class alone has 16 skills to cover, so with no further ado, let's get started. The first skill on the Soldier tree is Shield Wall. This is a Soldier class's formation skill, which inflicts provoke on all enemies in its area of effect, causing them to attack the unit using it and ignore others. The unit using this skill takes no damage while the skill is active, but rather loses discipline instead, which is the blue circle that appears over the unit and drains with each hit taken. At higher levels, it can also give delay to enemies, which slows their movement, attack, and skill recharge rate. Shield Wall can be great to group enemies up for other units' AoE attacks, or as I found myself using it, to give you a minute of breathing room to heal up your party if things are looking bad. However, there is a pretty big downside to using Shield Wall as well. While your Soldier class is using it, they do not attack and cannot use other skills without deactivating this one early. In my time with the game, I found it better to do as much damage to the enemies as possible as fast as possible, rather than trying to tank with one unit and lose 1/4 or more of my damage output. As you'll see as we go through the rest of the Soldier skills, I'm not really a fan of the tanks in this game, especially when almost every mission has time-sensitive goals. Tanking just took too much time, I thought. But anyway, moving on to the next skill. By far, one of, if not my favorite skills in the game, Assassination is a speedrunner's dream. This skill, when used well, can cut minutes off your mission times and nearly eliminate the need to tank at all. Assassination is a skill available only to Andreas, as he is the only dagger-wielding unit. This skill does relatively high damage, but where it really shines is in its ability to be used quickly with no cooldown. If you kill an enemy unit with Assassination, the cooldown for it is set to 0, thus allowing you to chain multiple uses of the skill together, clearing out several weak or weakened enemies in a matter of seconds. The first upgrade for Assassination grants you a 30% damage bonus during cooldown, making it a decent 8-second buff for your unit if you don't finish off an enemy with it. The next two upgrades decrease its EP cost by 4 down to only 16, and then increase its damage by 50%. These upgrades make it an extremely cheap and powerful skill that, in terms of raw single target DPS versus cost, I would say is the most OP skill in the game, particularly early on. The next skill on the list is Leaping Attack. I found this to be relatively useful early on in the game for getting into the enemy's backline and taking out their ranged units, but later abandoned it for skills with higher damage output. Once upgraded, it becomes a little cheaper to use at level 1, immobilizes at level 2, and gains a 25% larger AoE at level 3. Because of the immobilize, this could be useful to slow down enemy units while you are still engaging a different group. But honestly, there are better control options, particularly with the Magicka class. Taking your main DPS character out of the fight for a few seconds to do a controller's job just doesn't make sense to me. Moving on now to another one of my favorites, Shadow Step. This skill moves you behind the enemy, thereby guaranteeing you gain the ambush attack bonus, along with doing decent damage on its own. The real advantage in this skill, though, comes from using it on enemies with status effects, which inflicts up to double the damage. The first upgrade brings its cooldown to only 4 seconds, the next increases its range, and the last grants rapidity to your unit, thereby increasing your attack speed and movement speed, and further reducing your cooldown. Once you have Shadow Step leveled up, and can reliably inflict negative statuses, it becomes a suitable upgrade to Assassination. Though I found myself using a weapon that had both skills, and I would simply use Shadow Step to weaken an enemy, and Assassination to finish them off. Next up we have Dagger Blitz. I used this skill for a few missions, but compared to the other skills available to Andreas, this one just isn't that good. It tries to turn a single target damage dealer into an AoE debuffer. Other characters and skills do this so much better. Even with its upgrades of 50% more damage to enemies with status effects, 20% cooldown reduction, and EP cost reduction of 30%, this skill is still very weak, especially for its cost, even though it does inflict poison. The biggest downside for me is the cooldown time. Even upgraded, the skill has an 8-second cooldown. In 8 seconds, I can use both Shadow Step and Assassination twice, or more, probably killing 2 or more full health enemies in the same time that Dagger Blitz hurts maybe 3 units, but doesn't kill any of them. As I mentioned earlier though, I used a Blitz playstyle which turned me off to this skill. Maybe you have a playstyle that this fits well into. If so, let me know in the comments. Finally, for the Andreas only skills, we have Avatar Rush, which you could call the ultimate skill on this branch of the tree. Each weapon type has one of these powerful skills that come with their own unique cutscenes when used. For its part, Avatar Rush is the highest single target damage skill available when fully upgraded. Avatar Rush doubles its damage if the target is less than 25% health. Its upgrades increase its damage by a further 20%, reduce its cooldown time, and finally give it another 50% damage increase to targets that have status effects. It is a powerful and a great finishing move, but you can get the same result or better out of a Shadow Step Assassination combo with little to no cooldown compared to a 16-second cooldown. Moving on now to the tank skills of the soldier class. First up, we have Shield Bash. Shield Bash is one of the more useful tank skills as it inflicts stun, which is great to have in order to interrupt enemy skills. It also does okay damage. The upgrades reduce its cooldown time by 2 seconds, allow it to inflict Wither, and increase its range. The best of these is probably inflicting Wither, which increases the damage that an enemy takes. This lines up a nice combo with something like Assassination or other high damage skills, allowing you to finish off an enemy quickly. Shield Charge is next on the list. This skill I find to be underwhelming. As I said earlier, I don't really like most of the tank skills, and this is probably one of the worst. It allows you to move to an enemy, interrupt them if they're charging a skill, and inflict Provoke on them. But it costs 35 EP and has a 12-second cooldown. And the way cooldowns work in DioField Chronicle is that you cannot use any skill while you're on a cooldown timer. This means that after you use Shield Charge, you can't use any other skill for 12 seconds, which can be the whole length of some of your engagements. The skill also does very low damage versus its cost. The first upgrade to Shield Charge makes it inflict weakness, reducing the attack power of the target, which makes it slightly better. The next two slightly reduce its cost and extend its range, but all in all, there are simply better, cheaper skills out there that don't hamstring you for so long. Next up, we have the Sword and Shield ultimate ability, Phantom Sword. This is an area attack that inflicts weakness and does extra damage to Cavaliers. Its upgrades give it 20% more damage, give increased damage during its cooldown, and make it inflict delay. This can be pretty useful against groups of Cavaliers, slowing them down and reducing their damage output, and it does pretty decent damage to the whole group as well. I only used it a few times myself, but let me know if you've used it and how effective it's been for you. And also, please take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more DioField and tactical RPG content. Thank you so much, I really appreciate it. Photon Blade is next, and it looks cool, but it's crap. It's supposed to do small amounts of damage to enemies around you while it is active, but the damage it does is negligible and not worth the cooldown time. The upgrades to it increase your attack speed while in cooldown, reduce its EP cost, and increase damage during cooldown, but the few times I use this skill, it did not impress me at all. There are far better options, even in the other sword and shield skills. Roundhouse Slash, on the other hand, isn't too bad, as it does okay area damage and inflicts provoke. Its upgrades increase its damage, give tenacity to its user, which increases their defense, and increases damage during cooldown. This can be a useful alternative to Shield Wall, allowing you to provoke enemies into going after your tank, while still allowing you to use other abilities in quick succession. First up, on the Axe side of the skill tree, we have Axe of Grace. This skill is relatively useful due to its ability to heal you based on the damage dealt with it. It also inflicts provoke and does decent damage. With upgrades, it has a lower EP cost, gives rapidity to its user, and increases your damage by 30%. The rapidity effect only occurs, however, if you have a quarter of your health or less. A lot of the Axe skills are meant to be used at low health, as they do more damage or give other benefits in that situation. Personally, I don't really like this quirk because a lot of attacks, particularly from bosses or enemy skills that you don't catch in time, can kill you when you're that low on health. Next we have Boomerang Axe. This is the axe skill that I probably use the most, as it is another that heals you. This one heals you based on how many enemies you hit with it, so if you can hit 3 or more enemies with it, you can do some decent damage, along with getting some good healing done as well. It is awkward to use, however, because of its circle-shaped targeting box. In Boomerang Axe's upgrades, we get another buff to ourselves if we are under 25% health. This time, it is Tenacity, the defense boost. We also get increased damage at level 2 and increased healing at level 3. Overall, this is a pretty effective skill if you can get enemies lined up for it, though it is expensive at 30 EP and a 10-second cooldown. Heavy Smash is yet another skill reliant on low health. The lower your HP, the more damage it does. This skill can hit multiple enemies though, and its upgrades increase its damage, range, and inflict stun if your HP is 25% or less. Here is yet another low health, high damage skill in Shockwave. This one has a cone AoE attack, so you can hit a lot of enemies with it if you can draw them in. The upgrades for this one increase its damage, give delay to enemies if your health is low, and increases your damage during cooldown. I never really got much use out of these axe skills in general, because I didn't really like to let my unit's health drop below a quarter. As I said, it's risky, and I was always trying to make sure I got the bonus reward for not having any allies fall in battle. But I suppose if you like to play dangerously, these skills could be perfect for you, and do a lot of damage. Finally, we come to the last soldier skill on the tree, Deadly Chaser. This is the Axe's ultimate skill, and it actually does pretty good damage, particularly against enchanted beasts, and it does not require you to be dying to get the best out of it. Its upgrades increase its damage, range, and the last one buffs you with might, increasing your attack damage without you having to be at a quarter of your health. All in all, a pretty decent, if a little expensive, skill. Well, there you have it. All 16 soldier skills in DioField Chronicle. My recommendation for an upgrade path as you play for the soldier class would be to focus on the dagger skills up the left side of the tree first. I feel like you get the most benefit and cost effectiveness out of these skills. Of course, it really depends on your playstyle too, but most of these dagger skills are just too OP to pass up. I hope this breakdown and overview helps you understand some of these skills better and how they can be used. Stay tuned to the channel for the other classes' skill breakdowns, which will come in the next few days. I am also thinking about doing a video talking about some of the most useful and powerful combos in the game, so let me know in the comments if that's something you guys would be interested in seeing. But for now, remember again to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you'd like to see more of my content, you can watch this video over here. And as always, thank you for watching, and keep on gaming.